We'll take a look at the ship which replaced the TIE Fighter and why it ultimately failed. All that and more in today's video. Hey guys, this is Justin. Hello and welcome to another video. So, one of my favorite series in Star Wars Legends is the Thrawn duology. It's basically the bookend to the Bantam era of Star Wars novels. In short, after the Battle of Endor, the Empire has suffered defeat after defeat. They had and lost Thrawn. They had and lost a reborn Emperor. They had and lost Super Star Destroyers in the Deep Core, and now the Imperial Remnant is a mere shadow of its former power. Not only has the Empire lost territory, but it's lost resources and personnel. This has required a rethinking of Imperial strategy away from the Tarkin Doctrine and towards something more pragmatic. Pellaeon sums up the Empire's status. It was over, and deep down, Pellaeon was sure Ardif knew it as well as he did. 1,000 systems left out of an empire that had once spanned 1,200,000 Star Destroyers remaining from a fleet that had once included over 25,000 of them. A single major shipyard which can't keep up demand for capital ships, let alone starfighters. The Empire was in a position where they simply couldn't continue wasting resources on thousands and thousands of ultimately disposable TIE fighters. That led to the introduction of the PREYBIRD. The PREYBIRD was an extremely strange fighter, and honestly, the Empire moving to the PREYBIRD really showed their desperation. It was the first time the Empire began to move towards a fighter which was not actually produced by Imperial shipyards. Instead, the PREYBIRD was sourced from the underworld. Kind of an ironic ship for the Empire to use. The PREYBIRD was a Sorosub creation. Sorosub, of course, was one of the first major shipbuilders to support the Rebel Alliance, with vessels like the Dauntless fighting for the Alliance and later the New Republic. But the PREYBIRD, as Pellaeon later discovers, was not actually a successful ship line. A few units were produced, the line was eventually dropped. The plans and some of the old facilities were bought by the Caverloo pirates, who restarted ship production in order to sell these seemingly second-rate vessels to the Empire. Now, whenever someone talks about the PREYBIRD, they're not really portrayed as bad fighters, not poor really, they're adequate, they're certainly larger and slower than TIE fighters, fit in a different role within the Imperial military, but they're okay. I'll talk more about ship specifications in just a second, but the biggest problem with the PREYBIRD, honestly, was the way the Empire was securing them. Not only were their acquisitions limited to one group of pirates who were slowly churning out new starfighters, but it was also a very inefficient system, with Imperial officials apparently siphoning off a decent amount of money for each transaction, which could have obviously went towards more starfighters. So honestly, the biggest issue with the Empire's replacement of the PREYBIRD was not the PREYBIRD itself, but rather the way the Empire was securing the fighter, plus the fact that the TIE Fighter itself was just such a famous Imperial symbol, and it was actually pretty successful in its designated role, i.e. anti-starfighter duties. The PREYBIRD was more of a generalist fighter, where the TIE line was made up of several different units, of course, from the TIE Interceptor to heavy TIE bombers, and even in their weakened state, the Empire still would have reaped the psychological benefit of TIE fighters appearing in battle. Anyway, the Empire stopped using the PREYBIRD not only for issues with production and acquisition, as I've previously laid out, but also the fact that the Empire stopped needing so many starfighters. The Thrawn duology essentially ends with the New Republic and the Empire signing a peace accord, and there really was a relatively stable relationship between the two factions until the Yuuzhan Vong War. By that time, presumably the Empire had been able to convince some independent systems to rejoin Imperial ranks, to upgrade shipyards and production capabilities, and just slowly rebuild their losses. The scandal would not have lasted if the Empire didn't need the fighters, so once that need was removed, they fell back into obscurity. So how does the PREYBIRD compare to the TIE? Well, as I mentioned, it was a much heavier and larger starfighter. It was shielded, and it did also carry concussion missile launchers. Otherwise, for weaponry, the PREYBIRD used laser cannons affixed to the end of each wing. Another noted difference was that the PREYBIRD did contain a hyperdrive. This is something the Empire would not have found particularly useful and would have just been an extra cost and maintenance requirement they wouldn't have been interested in. TIE fighters were almost always launched from motherships or bases. They were meant to defend, so all a hyperdrive really does is allow a soldier to defect and join the New Republic. Otherwise, according to X-Wing Alliance, a PREYBIRD would have been similar in speed, although not maneuverability, to a TIE fighter, and would have fallen in both categories to a TIE Interceptor. So again, a very different starfighter for a very different era of the Empire. I actually don't hate it outright. It doesn't work for the Empire because it doesn't really fit well within their strategy nor their established doctrine, but I don't think it's a bad fighter overall. It's really just a middle-of-the-road starfighter. Had it been more popular and seen a full production run, you almost certainly would have seen the PREYBIRD in pirate gangs, planetary defense fleets, and private security forces across the galaxy. And of course, we can't talk about the PREYBIRD without acknowledging that, yes, the PREYBIRD does look a lot like the Klingon bird of prey. Surely not an accident there. But that's really all I've got to say about the PREYBIRD. It certainly, by the way, was not the only Sorosub starfighter product, although the faction was probably best known for its heavy vehicles and capital ships like the Dauntless or the Bulwark line. The Drexel was a relatively common Sorosub starfighter. According to the lore, it was actually developed based on the PREYBIRD, which itself was, as I mentioned, discontinued. It was similar with wing-mounted laser cannons, as well as a concussion missile launcher. I will say I actually prefer the Drexel's design. I don't have a video, but I actually think it does appear in Star Wars Outlaws as one of the sort of unnamed smuggler or criminal ships. Anyway, its relation to the PREYBIRD is actually a bit of a cover for some art mistakes where the PREYBIRD got several different designs. Continuing though, you've probably seen the Cutlass 9 before. Pretty cool design. That, as you can probably clearly tell, also inspired the much later Sith Fury class starfighter. I guess at some point in the 100 or so years after the New Republic, the Sorosub Corporation decided that they were cool supporting the Sith. However, what Sorosub was really known for was probably their yachts. Lando had a very famous yacht known as the Lady Luck, which is actually, by the way, made an appearance in Star Wars canon, while Mara Jade had the Jade's Fire. The Sorosub has also just appeared multiple times, even in canon media. Once you know the design, I guarantee you'll see it. Kinda surprised it didn't make its way into the final fleet in Episode 9. But that's all I've got. I hope you enjoyed this video on the PREYBIRD and honestly the bad cards that ship got throughout its entire existence. But that's all for now. Until next time, guys, be safe, have a good one, and may the Force be with you. Bye-bye.